Newsmax TV's continuing coverage of this developing story, coordinated terror attacks in Paris, continues on what is still the evening of Friday the 13th in the United States, but now very early on Saturday morning the 14th in the City of Lights. With Miranda Khan, J.D. Hayworth with you, and we have seen a series of attacks with some degree of simultaneous nature to them.
And we don't know if they're over. We're hearing reports as many as 7 attacks have occurred. We've heard 60 people are dead right now, and there's still 100 hostages right now in that theater. As we mentioned earlier, President Francois Hollande has closed the borders right now and issued a state of emergency.
And as we review what happened tonight, and it's interesting, we continue to monitor social media. And in this day and age where everyone has a camera, where everyone in essence can be a reporter, we are working to process what eyewitnesses saw inside the Stade de France, where the soccer stadium, where France and Germany were playing soccer, when that arena was rocked by an explosion and the sounds of gunfire, with apparently an attack at a restaurant bar in the vicinity of that stadium. Miranda made mention of the concert hall. Right. And here is the footage that we see right now as the game was going on.
You can actually hear the explosion as it happens.
And it is something, and no doubt we will be processing the variety of pieces of information that come in via social media and the different websites. Back to what happened at the concert hall.
Yeah, and well, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that as we understand it, French radio was reporting tonight that an assailant stood up during the performance of the concert hall wielding a pump-action shotgun, and as he started to fire at patrons of the theater, he yelled, and I quote, "This is for Syria." Obviously, France, part of the allied group of nations conducting airstrikes in Syria and the Middle East. As General Michael Hayden, our guest earlier, made mention, Miranda, there has been a long-standing challenge in and around Paris with enclaves of Muslims who have moved in from the Middle East to the outskirts of Paris, and French culture being what it is, the predominant attitude of Académie Française and the French people, there has not been great assimilation in those communities, and perhaps, truth be told, not a real urge on the part of those who have moved in to assimilate to French culture. And so you have that working. You also have the influx of refugees from Syria and the Middle East as the problems have multiplied there. And of course, last January, the attacks on the French humor magazine, Charlie Hebdo, on the kosher supermarket, and a couple of other facilities there in Paris, which sadly now, as sensational as those attacks were, seem to be simply the harbinger of what has happened now, as Friday the 13th and Saturday the 14th basically become the French equivalent of our 9/11.
Well, you mentioned social media, you mentioned Syria, you mentioned the Charlie Hebdo attacks. Social media, there are reports out there that this could be an ISIS-related attack. You heard General Hayden mention earlier that he suspects that, but he cautions that we still don't know all the facts. But nonetheless, they've decided to close the borders. But again, you still have 100 hostages inside that theater.
And that sets up another dilemma for French authorities and a genuine human drama for the families of those who have been taken captive, held as hostages reportedly at the concert hall in Paris. Now again, we want to caution that one of the challenges of a developing story like this is that it is truly developing right before our eyes. Some of the information we get may be dead on accurate. Other reports in the fullness of time may prove to be erroneous. We are simply trying to pass along what we are able to glean from the Associated Press and other French press agencies, from French media, and of course from social media. But again, if you are just joining us, as on the East Coast you are preparing for a Friday night and you happen to tune in to Newsmax TV. Again, multiple terror attacks in Paris. What is last night in Paris and now very early Saturday morning. And it is something that continues to unfold.
And interestingly enough, the president, our president, is expected to actually travel to Paris to discuss climate change at the end of the month.
And this is the situation that becomes, yes, my background is I've been involved. No, I'm not jumping on that at all. What I want to say is this: the irony of our president and vice president going to our service academies and saying the threat to our national security is global warming. There is no way, and yes, I will not abandon my role as a commentator even at this hour, but I would hope that especially tonight, most sober-minded Americans understand the absurdity of trying to claim that global warming is the greatest threat to the United States of America. This from a commander-in-chief and an administration that will never even join the words together, Islamic and terror. So it is a major problem, and certainly tonight I appreciated the remarks of the president. You point out the irony, Miranda, that this is where Paris was supposed to be the site of a world conference on climate change. Let's hope there is a change in the climate of understanding what the true threats are. We will rejoin you at the top of the hour with more. For Miranda Khan, J.D. Hayworth, our coverage will continue on Newsmax TV.